Hi, it's Gwen from Hummingbird Tarot, and today I thought I would do a fun video. I just wanted to share the Celtic decks that I have in my collection. I saw several other decks come up in my feed that were Celtic related, and it just made me decide that I wanted to get my decks out again and play with them, so I thought I would share with you. So the first deck that I have in my collection is a newer deck. It's the Universal Celtic Tarot. The backs of these are beautiful. I've shared this in one of my other videos, but if you can't tell by looking at me, I do have some Irish and Scottish heritage. And I find myself drawn to Celtic and Druid things, especially tarot decks. But I do have one Lenormand deck that's Celtic that I want to share. Love those standing stones. I haven't been to Ireland or Scotland yet, but it's on my list. Another deck that I got is from Los Scarabeo, and this is the Celtic Tarot. And it's a mini one. It's little. I have small hands, and this one was a little bit smaller than I was expecting it to be. I tried working with it, and it's hard to shuffle. You can see it's tiny. You just have to get a little creative with the shuffle. But I also found that I wanted to take a closer look at some of the images, and they're hard to see when they're this small. I do have a Rider-Waite Smith deck that's this small, and I'm super familiar with the images, so that one's easy to work with for me. But this one, I decided to buy the bigger version also. Before I show you the bigger version, there's the back of the minis. I'm knocking them all over. And then the Celtic Tarot, it has a different cover. It's the same deck, but look at the difference in size. It's a lot bigger. One thing I do prefer in the bigger deck is the backs. It's just really cool looking. But I do have to say I was disappointed in the images for this one because they're a little out of focus. And it's almost like when they were taking photographs of them, it just didn't turn out that great. And I can kind of see the images better, but they're definitely more crisp and clear on my smaller version of the deck. And this deck is a little more feisty and fiery, very aggressive, I would say. So I have to be careful which readings I do with this, because this deck goes beyond sass. It's talking back. It's getting all up in your face. It's more than just sassy. It's definitely aggressive. So I'm careful. If I'm feeling a little tender, or the reading that I'm doing for someone else is going to need to be a little more gentle, I definitely don't go to that deck. The next one is Tarot of the Druids. Here's the back of these. And here's some of the images. On this deck has more of a sense of humor. Some of the images are funny, and it's definitely down to earth. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's definitely got lots of Celtic connections. I mean, look at that. That just cracks me up. How can you take that seriously? One more. Oh, the Ace of Cups. This next one is my first Lenormand deck. It's the Celtic Lenormand, and it comes in a great hard box like you would get for oracle cards. And the cards themselves are actually significantly smaller than the box. And it comes with a book. And these are smaller. They're smaller than poker cards. They're really small in your hand. And I have used these. I spent some time with these. This was something that I got this year for the holidays. And I'm finding I have read through and studied the Lenormand system, and the book that came with this is pretty good and talks about it. But I found I'm more drawn to using them more like I do a tarot card and leaving it open to the interpretation of the reader rather than having it being so black and white. The artwork in these is really great. I appreciate this one. So the next one to share is the Druidcraft. This one's pretty popular. A lot of you, I'm sure, have seen this deck already. I think the deck is spectacular and I love it, but the book that came, I bought a book and deck set. The book for this is spectacular. Really good book. I highly recommend it. It's just a good tarot book, but it also works great in conjunction if you're reading it while you're using the cards. So I have modified my deck. Here's what the backs look like, and these are trimmed. I trimmed off a lot of the borders. The main reason is I just thought it was unnecessary, the borders, and it made the cards so big they were hard to handle. I've shared this in some of my former videos, but I have small hands, and this is the trimmed version, and it's still bigger than a standard tarot deck. It's still wider. Now it's similar to what a standard oracle card size would be, but it's a little easier for me to handle. I'm going to go ahead and share some of the images here. I'm sure most of you have already seen them, but it's just such great artwork, and it definitely ties to the Celtic side of things. All kinds of plaid, lots of kilts, lots of fighting. I actually made a bag for myself. I had some extra fabric. I have a sewing machine and I do know how to sew. So I just made a plaid bag for myself. And it just fits in here perfect. And it's a super soft, it's not real plaid, it's not wool. It's a cotton poly blend, but it's super soft, and I love my plaid bag for my Druidcraft Tarot deck. This next deck has been the longest one in my collection, and I bought this one back in the 1990s. It's a Sacred Circle Tarot. And this one also has a book that I really enjoy that came with it. There's the back of these cards. And this one, I think, is out of print. Well, I know it's out of print, but I've seen it for sale. I looked for it online to see if I could find it, and somebody on eBay was selling it. So there are some of them floating out there. But all these decks definitely have a certain vibe. One more. There you go. And the last deck that I'm sharing is the Celtic Dragon. And I'll put resources about all of this in the notes for this. And this one also has a book that came with it. Here's the back. And then I'll share some of what these cards look like. These are very fun. They give the dragons the personality of a human. There's angry, there's sad ones. That first one I showed you was a dragon that was studying books. This is the lover's card. This one's very sweet. I shared that as one of my favorite lover's cards, like two little puppy dogs. It's a very fun deck. It's not like any other deck. And that's what I appreciate about this one. So I hope you enjoyed going through my Celtic card collection with me. I had a really good time. I've been using these cards this last week. Once I pulled them out to get ready for this video, I wanted to just use them again. So I have been using some of them, and I love it when I rediscover things that have been sitting in my collection for a long time that I used to absolutely be in love with, and I forgot how much I enjoyed them. Thanks for stopping by.